we have a question. Jane, obviously Israel and Gaza are on the front burner, but what are your thoughts about the future of the Ukraine war? That's an easy one.
Yeah, I mean, with Ukraine, I mean, a lot of it is going to come down to how much support they continue to get. It's a hugely important, it's one of those stories that is going to massively depend on ongoing support from America and Europe. This is obviously hugely impacted by what happens on the political landscape here in the United States. I know the Ukrainians will not stop fighting. You know, they're not going to, I mean, so much as politicians on the far left and the far right in the United States like to say, well, we should just sit down and have peace negotiations. You know, Putin is not looking for peace negotiations right now, and he is not sitting down to negotiate anything. So the Ukrainians will continue to fight. I've seen these people use manhole covers as you know, as shields against potential, like against the invaders. Like, these people will not stop fighting, you know, just because they're no longer getting the most advanced weaponry. I think the question will be how to effectively continue the resistance against Russian invasion without losing so many lives. And so I do think it's likely to come to a stalemate over the winter. The summer offensive, I think it's fair to say, has not been a success. And I think that Ukraine is probably going to fight to a standstill this winter and will most likely be impacted by American politics, but also whatever is happening in Russia as well, and whether or not you know, Putin can sort of basically continue with the status quo.
And no one would sure on that one. No future on that. A professor in Illinois, Steve Raymer, who also covered wars, said, you talk about being brave and courageous. Do you see a difference between bravery and courageous? Because this is our one, we call ourselves braves, but do we have to do this because it's our calling and our job? He believes perhaps courageous is a better word. Have you ever sliced it that way?
I'm not sure I've ever really separated the two words. I always get a bit uncomfortable. People are always saying to me, oh my goodness, you're so brave. You're so brave. Don't you ever get scared? And I'm like, you should read the book, because I'm scared a lot. So I think courage, though, is, I think it's more of a fundamental personality. It's more about character than individual acts. You know, I think it kind of is more about who you become. Bravery feels a bit, I guess I could splice it. It feels a bit like the sort of mad hat thing you might do in a moment, you know, or the actions you have to take to do your job. Courage, I think, is more of a fundamental part of who you try to be.
That's good. Another question for you as a teacher. What do you tell your students to read to open their minds to covering geopolitics and conflicts?
I tell them too much to read. I think I famously give horribly long reading lists. I try to get them to read really like the reporting that I think is really good. Anthony Shadid's reporting from Baghdad in 2003, when much of TV was covering kind of like shock and awe as though it was some sort of fireworks display. Like, he was on the ground talking to human beings and Baghdadis about their lives. I make them read every single article he wrote that won the Pulitzer the next year. It's absolutely remarkable reporting. I make them read a fair bit of C.J. Chivers' work on the fighters, you know, on those who fight wars. I make them listen to a lot of Edward R. Murrow broadcasts from World War II. And in this day and age, I effectively like try to get them to read pretty much like everything in the news that they can, to see how, not just to learn about the news, but to learn about how it's being covered. What I hope is that they learn to be critical in the best possible way of reporting, and to seek out good quality work.
When they come into your classroom, do they already have a somewhat sophisticated idea of where they can get the best news?
No. And it's actually, I taught in 2020 and now, and the difference is incredible. In 2020, I still had to sit down and say, okay, not all news just gets spoon-fed to you through Twitter. Like, you can go to the source. You can go to your computer and type in www.washingtonpost.com, and then you can click through to the world news, and then you can see. This is something that in most cases my students are doing for the first time, seeking out the news, like sitting down to read the news. And I'll explain to them, listen, you don't have to read the whole paper. You don't even have to read the whole article. You know, you need to like get through, you know, go to the source, you know, get up in the morning, listen to the NPR report, or listen to anything, you know, go to the FT, go to the New York Times and read these reports. And it's so funny because every time I have my first class, I always get the same thing where they'll tell you exactly what they think you want to hear. They'll be like, I read the New Yorker all the time. I listen to NPR. I da. And then I'll be like, really? So what was on the news today? and usually they haven't gone to the source. They just stumble upon stuff that's spoon-fed to them on TikTok or Snapchat.
My God. I mean, whenever I talk to a class, my first question is, where do you get your news? And I'm stunned that they don't have an answer most of the time other than their feed.
Right.
Their feed.
Exactly.